I use the term divorce. I try to divorce exercise from body size and shape and weight, and really kind of try to tie it into independence, quality of life, function, mobility, being able to do the things you want to do, stress management, emotional regulation, like those things that are really important for us as we get older, and trying to really think about what does that look like for us as we move through menopause and into postmenopause.
Hi, I'm Missy, the menopause midwife. I'm here to break down all the things about menopause and hormones that seem overly complicated, which is pretty much everything. With over 10 years of experience catching babies and 2 decades of intuitive massage therapy practice, I have spent the last few years deep diving into all things menopause to figure out why so many women are suffering and why there seems to be so much confusion about hormones and menopause. Calling on my midwifery experience and my desire to help women attain and maintain full autonomy, I will stay next to you during this life transition and help to explain the options as you step into your power and find optimal health. Hello, my lovelies. There's a conversation happening right now in the wellness and menopause space that feels really nuanced, sometimes a little uncomfortable and emotionally charged. It has to do with the important difference between punishing your body and supporting your body. On one hand, women are finally rejecting decades of body shame, crash dieting, toxic messaging. They are exhausted and they are done. Done with decades of dieting, obsessing over weight, trying to shrink ourselves, mashing into uncomfortable clothes, bouncing back, trying to earn worthiness through deprivation, and the idea that our worth is tied to the size of our jeans, and thank God for that. Then, on the other hand, there are those of us, and I'm including myself in this, who actually feel better in midlife than we ever have before because we learned how to truly support our bodies. We found ways to feel better without punishing ourselves. We started prioritizing ourselves, eating more protein, regulating our blood sugar, optimizing our hormones, sleeping better, building muscle, and lifting heavy shit. And apparently, those two ideas can feel controversial. They're being framed as opposites when maybe they don't have to be. Somewhere along the way, conversations about body acceptance started getting interpreted as you shouldn't care about your health, while conversations about strength, body composition, or wanting to feel confident in your skin started getting labeled as vanity or diet culture. I don't think the answer is that women should stop caring about their health or stop wanting to feel confident in their bodies just as they are. But I also don't think that women should have to live trapped in constant self-criticism, punishment, and obsession to become something else either. I don't think either extreme serves women. There's a massive difference between punishing your body and supporting your body. Training hard because you want to stay strong, protect your bones, regulate your metabolism, carry your grandbabies or your babies if they came later in life, hike that mountain, or simply feel powerful in your own skin feels very different than trying to hate yourself into becoming smaller. And I think a lot of women are trying to navigate that nuance right now. How do we balance body acceptance with wanting to feel strong and vibrant? What's the difference between discipline and obsession? Where's the line between empowerment and perfection? Can body neutrality coexist with physique goals? How do women pursue goals without tying their worth to the outcome? What's the difference between nourishing the body versus controlling it? I think you can love your body and still want better labs and better abs. I think you can reject diet culture and still care about muscle mass and your ass. I think you can heal your relationship with food and still want to feel smoking in your jeans, if you know what I mean, no matter what the size. So, sorry for all the puns, but I think women deserve freedom from body shame and permission to pursue feeling strong, energized, confident, capable, healthy, and dare I say, beautiful. Today's conversation is about finding that middle ground, that space where women can care for their bodies deeply without living at war with themselves. Today's guest, Anne Poirier. Did I say that right, Anne?
You sure did. Thank you.
She lives in this conversation every single day. She's a nationally recognized body image expert, intuitive eating counselor, author, and someone who has personally recovered from eating disorders and body shame. Today, we're talking about body neutrality, menopause, aging, wellness culture, identity, and how women care for their bodies deeply without living at war with themselves. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you, Missy, and what a great intro. This conversation is going to be very rich because
Thank you.
everything that you said is so interesting where our culture is taking us right now.
It is. It's a wild, wild ride. So, Anne, can you start us out today and let us know, what brought you to this work? What even is an intuitive eating coach? Maybe I'll
There's
start there.
it's interesting because the whole journey starts with feeling not comfortable in my body, as a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old and not looking like
Mm.
the other kids and having
Mhm.
nicknames and not fitting in and not fitting in the right clothes. And so there was this kind of dialogue in my early life around, the stocky, sturdy girl, the one that was the chubby, cute little baby, and then there was just a series of events that happened kind of simultaneously that really pushed it kind of over the edge for me. Not only was there a nickname growing up that my brother lovely gave me, that there was also a period of time where I went to a doctor right before junior high. So I was right around 11 years old. And the doctor pointed to the scale, pulled my mom aside, and said, you better watch what she's eating. You got to stop any weight gain right now. She's at the top of the scale. So food rules started at home for me,
Mm.
and just after that, going to shop for clothes for junior high, and then not being able to fit in the clothes on the regular section and having to be ushered off to the back of the store where the husky section is and trying to fit into clothes there. And then just being in school, looking different, feeling different. And that
Yeah.
just propelled me into a space of, I have to do something. My body is wrong. I am wrong. I must do
Mm.
something about my body to change it so that I could fit in and be accepted and
Mhm.
belong. And
Yeah.
that's where I started to, the one thing you go to, and this was in the 70s, was, tab, and basically eating as little as humanly possible that you
Yeah.
can get away with, and that's what started me cycling into an eating disorder when I was 11 years old. So,
Oh, at 11.
I
That's so
spent
early. So, at what point did you find your way out of that, or how did you find your way out of that?
well, unfortunately, it was a long journey because
Mhm.
it was during the '70s, and so there wasn't a whole lotta help at that time. My mom absolutely saved my life by being relentless in her search for help for me. I went to a counselor at the time. I ended up in the hospital for a little while. Don't really know about 3 years of my life I kind of missed in this space, but got well enough to be able to kind of return to high school. And so I returned to high school and just kind of switched my obsession from food and exercise to playing soccer. And so now my obsession was something that I could move physically and be physically active.
Mhm.
And then I went to college for fitness because that way I would have to stay in shape, right?
Okay.
So you can actually see this ball rolling forward with momentum, and
Mhm.
to be honest, it wasn't until my mid-40s, after a couple of relapses into eating disorder behavior, that my body finally told me. My body
Mhm.
finally broke down, and my body said, "You know what? You gotta stop and pay attention." And so that is where my journey started. I went back to school for eating disorders. Learned through my eating disorder research and diet culture and diet research. I started to get mad and angry at it all, and that's where
Mhm.
a lot of things started to roll forward, and I said, "I don't want other people to live in this obsession for decades like I
Mhm.
did," and so that's been my journey to heal myself so that I could step forward and say, "There is another way. We
Mhm.
can think about food, our bodies, and exercise differently."
And what is that other way?
Well, through intuitive eating, and intuitive eating is very interesting. So, intuitive eating, the book Intuitive Eating, Evelyn Tribble and Elise Reich wrote it in 1995. So, it's been out a long time. And it's not like, and people always say to me, well, I intuitively want ice cream, so I should just eat it, right? I laugh and I go, well, how does your body feel when you eat that ice cream? Right. So,
Mhm.
intuitive eating is really about tuning into our bodies. And I think this is what you talk to a lot of with your listeners and your clients. How do we start to listen into our bodies? Because all
Mhm.
diets and diet culture has always been, here, you eat this. How much,
Mhm.
when, and what time. and what to eat. So you're told exactly what you're supposed to do rather than, huh, what feels good in my body? How does that respond in my body? Am I even hungry right now?
Yeah.
Am I getting full? Like all of those questions that we just kind of bypass because we think somebody else knows what we should do.
Yeah, part of that intuition too is embracing your autonomy. Because if you listen to your body, then your autonomy comes online and you go, "Oh, actually, maybe the carnivore diet really strict is not a fit for me. Maybe the Mediterranean diet feels better to my body. Maybe I like to count my macros because that works for my body and my brain. Maybe I can't count anything because that sends me into a spiral." So I think there's a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Absolutely. It's really starting to tune into what's best for you.
Mhm,
Both with food and eating and how we manage our energy, and then also with exercise and movement.
mhm,
Not everybody's gonna migrate to the same things. And then I still have a little bit of, yes, but strength is important, right? Especially as we get older and knowing how important that is. I use the term divorce. I try to divorce exercise from body size and shape and weight and really kind of try to tie it into independence, quality
mhm.
of life, function, mobility, being able to do the things you want to do, stress management, emotional regulation, like those things that are really important for us as we get older, and trying to really think about what does that look like for us as we move through menopause and into postmenopause.
I wrote down some examples of statements about, like, listening to our bodies. So things we can say, like, if we're trying to be intuitive about our bodies, "I feel strong," or "This makes me feel strong," or "I feel full," or "I feel tired," or "My back is straining," or "I feel energized," or "I don't feel like myself today." These are things that you can start telling yourself and asking yourself. Do you have some things, some phrases that you really like to lean on when you're teaching people to start really listening to their bodies instead of looking at diet culture, let's say somebody else's plan, so that they can look at maybe
Mm.
somebody else's plan and go, this part of it is a fit for me, but this part isn't. And how do I create something that helps my body feel amazing and strong?
Yeah, and that's the conversations that we have is what have you done in the past? Where has it taken you in the past? How did that make you feel? And so
Mhm.
really trying to gather data on ourselves and, oh, let's experiment with this and see how this works. For some people, is having a schedule is really helpful. Making sure that there's lots of colors, making sure that we're getting protein and fiber, like there's definitely nutrition pieces. And then if you have like some favorite foods of yours that might not be as nutritious, how do we work them in a way that's sustainable and it's going to still move you in the direction that you're trying to go? It really is just starting this conversation and a new relationship with your body.
Mhm.
And part of that really starts with becoming more respectful and appreciative of the body, which is
Mhm.
not always something that people do because they've been so hard on themselves for most of their
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, they definitely have. And so how do you bridge the gap between I know there's this conversation about body positivity and body neutrality. I feel like there's a lot of confusion about that. Can you just kind of give us your overview of that and kind of we can dive in to the different rabbit holes?
Body positivity actually started in the 60s as a fat activist kind of group, feeling better in your bodies regardless of size and shape. But then right around the 90s, it started to get kind of pulled in a different direction. And it was about just love your
Mhm.
body, regardless of what it looks like. Just love yourself and love your body. And so it's very appearance focused. Body neutrality, I talk about this a lot because it helped me a lot. You're right. So here was a framework that made me not feel like I had to love my body because I'd spent 40 plus years hating my body. And so to tell me to love my body was just, it wasn't happening.
Right, it
And
wasn't attainable. Or it didn't seem like it was anywhere in the possibility of reality for you at that time.
And it's just like, well, why bother then? Throw up your
Mhm.
hands and say, forget it. Versus body neutrality is this, I call it this resting place in the middle of the body image continuum where you get to take a
Oh.
little bit of a moment to go,
Oh, I like that.
It's not giving
Mhm.
up at all, but it's saying, "I do not have to love my body right now. I may never love my body,
Right.
and that's okay, but hating my body hasn't really gotten me anywhere,
Right.
and that's not very helpful either. So let me just take a pause, turn down the volume of all this appearance, diet culture, society's thin ideal, all of those things, and turn up the volume on what has my body actually done for me over the
Mm.
course of my life. Shifting the focus away from
Mhm.
appearance always, it's always appearance versus what about the things it's done for you? You
Mhm.
know, I mean, I've had children, so my body's had children. My body has carried me through all types of different careers and helped me have great friendships, create programs, and it's done so much, and so it's just shifting this focus away from always looking at the appearance and
Mhm.
separating something that you talked about, Missy, in the beginning, separating worth and weight, which I
Mhm.
unfortunately, our culture has really tied together in a way that has been very harmful for women specifically.
Yeah, I think that that continuum is really important because I think that there is space for depending on where you start on that continuum and maybe where you are presently, there is room to look at the physical, like the beauty part of it. This is where I would love to hear kind of your take on this is I hear a lot of people say, "Well, never tell a girl she's beautiful," or whatever, like you're not appreciating her for who she is and whatever. And I guess I just don't really buy into that lock, stock, and barrel because A, I love to get a compliment, and I like it when somebody tells me I look beautiful. It makes me feel really good. But I don't have eating disorders in my past. I struggled with weight and whatnot. I mean, I don't know very many women who haven't, and body image and whatnot, but I've worked really hard to get strong. And I love it when someone notices that and calls it beautiful. That doesn't bother me. I have, for example, this summer, I have a niece who's going to have her quinceañera. I have a niece who's getting married. And I mean, there's no way I'm not gonna tell them they look beautiful. And so I really push back against that, like the language of aunties, of grandmas, of women telling other women, and even men. I don't feel like my dad told me, I mean, he never told me I was beautiful. He told me how beautiful other women were. He didn't tell
Mm.
me. And so I think that's part of the reason I like to hear it from other people because it feels so nice. Where is that middle ground? I feel like there is a middle ground. There can be a middle ground. And also, like, I love a chunky baby. Like, I love to squish some baby legs. I think we've like almost weaponized language the other direction where you can't, don't say anything like about their appearance. But I
Mm.
almost feel like we've gone too far the other way. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that we ping pong, right? It's
Mhm.
either this or it's this, and we go back and forth on these edges of the continuum on so
Mhm.
many things, and I don't think either one is right. As you were talking, the first thing that came to mind is understand your audience. Like, for
Mhm.
you, it's you love to hear you look beautiful. For some other people, they might take it and say, "Well, what did I look like before?" And so that's the flip side of it. So you really don't know how people are taking an appearance-based compliment.
Mhm.
And so I think what we can do here is allow ourselves to experiment with conversations around, "You look so strong. Man, you look
Mhm.
so relaxed. Oh, your face is your face looks beautiful." Like, why can't we say those things? I think we
Mhm.
can. And also understand how is a person taking it. Is that
Mhm.
okay for me to say, or do you not like that? And then when
Mhm.
it comes to kids, complimenting the things that they do, but also we can compliment, their cute little cheeks or whatever.
Mhm. Really.
Unfortunately, though, those things, depending on the kid, might be something that they hold on to, right?
Mhm.
So I know for me, a lot of my pre-framing was the chubby little baby and the stocky and sturdy and the bull in the china
Mhm.
shop. I
Mhm.
personally internalized a lot of that.
Right.
Other people could hear that, and
Mhm.
it would just be part of a beautiful conversation, right?
Yeah, and
Where
isn't that
it's
life? I
yeah,
mean, right, with anything we talk about is what you're saying, know your audience. It's tricky.
I do sometimes will say like, people will say something about to me about, "Oh, have you gained weight or have you lost weight?" It's usually lost, right? That's what people say. And I'm like, "I don't weigh myself, and I don't really talk about body." And then that person knows that that's not
Mhm.
a conversation that I have,
Right.
right?
Right. I think
S
that's a really nice way to let people know kind of where you're coming from. I am a little shocked that people still say, "Have you lost weight or have you gained weight?" If
s
I see someone who looks like they've lost weight, I'm like, You know, you look really healthy or you're looking super fit or how are you feeling?" Or
Mhm,
something like
mhm,
that. But because you don't know if
yeah,
they've lost or gained. Yeah, it's not
and you don't know why.
interesting. Right. Yeah. Because somebody
Right,
could be sick or somebody could be going through a really hard time. So I think the sensitivity is important, but I think also not losing those sweet things where, like, with my nieces, like, they know that I think that they're amazing, smart, strong, brilliant women, and they also look beautiful today,
uh-huh,
like, in their outfit, and they're having a celebration, a wonderful celebration. So, I always feel like, let's not lose one for the other. Let's not lose the beauty while we create awareness, and I love that you're creating some awareness. I really wanna go back to the body neutrality being on that breath on the continuum, because when you said that, it made me think about someone who, like you said, has hated their body for 30, 40 years, and then they're being told to love their body, and then it's like asking someone who's never worked out a day in their life to climb Mount Everest. Instead of
right,
saying, "Tomorrow we're gonna walk around the block." That feels doable. And so the
mhm.
body neutrality feels like the walk around the block to me. It's like that next step that someone can take to feel better inside of themselves.
And it starts with the simple little things. It
Mhm.
is like, what did your body do for you today? Oh, it digested my breakfast, took a shower. Maybe that's all it did. And what 2 wonderful things that is, right?
Yeah.
Your heart is pumping, it's breathing, there's blood
Mhm.
circulating. We forget about the amazing things that the body does. It's just starting to see how the body allows us to live our lives. I use
Mhm.
this phrase, our body is the vehicle that we get to live our life in. That's what body neutrality is. It's changed a bunch of shapes since you've been born to now. And when you were born, all babies love their bodies. That they're exploring, they're
Mhm.
new, they're different. And so we've been taught along the way and we learned along the way that our bodies are either right or wrong. So if you learned that your body was not the way it was supposed to be growing up, the good news is that we can unlearn that. And that's the
Mhm.
work of true body autonomy, starting to connect with your individual, unique, one of a kind body.
And so in your books, is this some of the practices of unlearning those negative self-talk patterns? Is that kind of what you go through, or can you tell us a little about what's in your books?
Sure. My first book's called The Body Joyful, and it's really my journey. And I use a gardening theme because there were seeds planted in my youth that we've just talked about that my body was wrong. And then how they got rooted and really
Mm.
deeply seated in my
Mhm.
behaviors, my thoughts, my emotions, my behaviors, and then realizing that this isn't working and trying
Mhm.
to, I call it weeding, we got to weed the garden and then we got to replant. So that's what we talk about is this of weight and worth. And we do exercises to really think about shifting the mindset
Mhm.
around food, around body, and around exercise and around self care. And as we can kind of replace and reframe a lot of the things that we've been taught and start questioning some of the belief systems, that's when we can start to move forward and have create almost a different identity for ourselves. I'm a different person now because I
Mhm.
have done this work. My most recent book is called The Body Neutrality Playbook, and it is all of that work. It's actually been researched by a couple of different organizations, and we're really getting some great results on how our behavior can change when we think about how we feel about our body. And so it's just everything that I ever did myself or I ever use with clients, all of my activities and tools and mindset shift, that's all in that book. And so very proud of kind of having someone who doesn't feel good in their body, not want to say anything to anybody, but here's a
Mhm.
book that might be
Right.
able to help you along the way.
Yeah, it has all the practical tools in it, so they
Mhm.
can work themselves through it. That's a beautiful tool 'cause I think there's probably a lot of shame involved
Oh,
in the whole process. I mean, eating disorders, body image, all of that is so buried in shame.
it's
So
full of
being
shame. It's full of
yeah.
shame.
So being able to do it in private to start that work if someone
Mhm.
feels like they need it or want it. While we're talking about that, I'm wondering how applicable this would be your playbook and your book and just these ideas because as women move into menopause, maybe they've
Mm.
felt really good in their bodies until they hit peri and menopause and their bodies start changing and shifting and they feel like they have no control. They start eating less, they start exercising more, and they're still gaining weight, or their body is still redistributing the composition of it in a way that they don't like or are not used to. So, can they use these tools as well?
Absolutely. It's about kind of thinking a little differently about your body, and it is so true when our bodies start to change, we try to do all the things that we know used to work,
Right.
right? Eat less,
Mhm.
exercise more. And unfortunately, the body is like, yeah, that's not gonna work, and that's not gonna help. And it
Right.
actually flips the switch to the opposite direction.
Yes, it
And
does.
that's part of your role, looking at
Mhm.
hormones and saying, wait a
Mhm.
minute, it's not just about energy in, energy out. There's so many other things. And how do we kind of step back away from what we've always done and start kind of walking a new path, looking at our body a little differently, starting to appreciate and be a little bit more compassionate, giving it the rest that it needs, trying to
Mhm.
regulate the nervous system, that nervous system. The beating ourselves up and working harder and eating less is actually counterproductive
Yes,
to
it is.
helping the body,
Mhm.
actually start to feel better. That's where I think the HRT can come into place and we can help ourselves
Yeah.
during this change as opposed to try to punish ourselves and beat ourselves up into a body that is just not our body anymore.
I just want to interject a little education moment here about HRT and
Mhm.
this weight gain that a lot of women end up with. And I think there's this little piece that's not very talked about because what happens when our estrogen stores start to dip, we cannot function without estrogen in our bodies. And there are three kinds of estrogen that we have estrone, estradiol, and estriol, estrogen 1, 2, and 3. And estrogen 2, so estradiol, is the one that's in the patch. It's the one that most women are using for HRT. Estriol as well. It's a little weaker, but it's still a beautiful estrogen, and I like it in combination with estradiol. I call it the cheeks, chest, and coochie estrogen. It's really amazing. But what I want to talk about is when estradiol drops, we know that estrone raises, and the way it raises, so your body, so we make estradiol, we make it from our ovaries. And when our ovaries stop producing estrogen, something else has to take over to keep us alive because we have estrogen receptors on every organ of our bodies. So it's a no-brainer. We cannot function without it. So what our body does is it hangs on to cholesterol and fat and it makes estrone. And estrone isn't necessarily bad, but it's our more inflammatory estrogen. It's not the one that makes us feel amazing. We can get a little foggy, inflamed, maybe a little joint achy. And so, what we really want in our bodies, the right amount of estradiol in our bodies, because that's the clean burning fuel for us. And then, once we have enough of that in our bodies, oftentimes our body can let go of that cholesterol because a lot of women will find as they hit perimenopause, their cholesterol starts climbing. And they're like, but I'm eating the same or better and I'm exercising more. And all these markers are getting worse. Why? Well, that's why. It's because our body is doing its job. It's protecting us. It does not care how you look in a bathing suit. It doesn't care that your joints hurt. It just cares that you function. And so, what we need to do is we need to support our bodies, not only with the thoughts that we put into it, but also with HRT. I am a big proponent of HRT. I think that you can't out supplement a hormone deficiency. If HRT doesn't work for you or you haven't found the right fit, I get that, but it's worth trying to find the right fit for you because it really makes a huge difference. So anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like go down the education rabbit hole, but I really, really like to talk about that because a lot of people don't understand the mechanism of action that happens, why our bodies start changing so rapidly, and that we feel like we're doing more, eating less, doing more, and we're still shifting. And we will still shift. There is a
Mm,
shift. But if we support our bodies,
right.
then we have maybe a little better chance to feel better through this change.
I
Yeah.
love that you educate because I think education is really what makes a difference in how we start to think about things, right? For me, it was a lot of the education on the calorie control and when we do
Mhm.
restrict, what happens to the body and working really hard around understanding the hormones leptin and ghrelin and
Oh,
cortisol
yes.
and all those
Yeah.
shifters. When I learned the research, that's what helped me understand it all. And so I
Mhm.
love that you're sharing the research around it and what's going on in the body because that's what we need to know in
Yeah.
order to help ourselves through a period of time in our life that we'd like it to be beautiful.
Mhm.
And how do we help ourselves move through this aging process because we aren't getting any younger and we are going to
No.
continue to get older, but we can also do it in a way where we can move through it strong, independent,
Mhm.
and have a really great quality of life.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. Hi, my lovelies. Let's talk hormones, shall we? After all, that's probably why you're here. Once we're deep in the perimenopause or menopause pool, that's where I bring in what I call my holy trinity from Quicksilver Scientific. The DHEA that they carry, it's sublingual. That's your metabolism booster, your mood lifter, and your muscle preserver. It comes in a bottle like this. Then we have estriol. It comes in a little squirt bottle, a pump like this. That's a serum that goes right on the skin. That's the estrogen that clears the brain fog and keeps the skin glowing. I call it cheeks, chest, and coochie for a reason. So, right here above your breasts or on your vulva. Progesterone, the third part of that holy trinity. She's the one that brings the calm and helps you sleep like a baby. You can order this full trio and get my personal guidance at ohm406.com. There are links to shop directly and book a consult if you want, so we can set up the right plan for your body. When you buy your hormones from my site, you're directly supporting this podcast and helping me to keep hormone care accessible for more women. So thank you truly for shopping small and smart. Be well. I wanted to shift for a second to fitness tracking. Friend or foe? I have some thoughts about it too. But I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
For me, it is a
Mhm.
foe, and
Okay.
that is fine. I
Mhm.
think for other people, it can be a friend. So,
Mhm.
like we talked about know your audience, for some people, it can work really well. I think about it much like the scale. For some people, the
Mhm.
scale is a measure, it's not a big deal. Fine, that's great. But for others, it can really impact emotions and behaviors.
Mhm.
And so maybe there's other ways we can track. And with fitness, for some, the fitness tracker can be great. For others, not so much. For me, when the Fitbit first came out 15 years ago, however long it came out, I had one, of course. And then I actually wrote a blog. This is when we just wrote little blogs. I had to take myself to Fitbit AA because it was just not helpful for me. So I know myself well enough to go, you know what? That's not
Yeah.
helpful for me. I got to listen in and tune into my body and go that way.
Yeah, I
So,
have a note to myself on this section saying reconnecting with internal cues. I agree with you. It can and know your audience. It can be a friend. It can be a foe. But the problem is outsourcing our body awareness completely. Just going,
mhm,
well, my fitness tracker said this, or my sleep tracker said this, or my calorie counter said this. And I think that replaces our intuition and our willingness to listen to our internal cues and to really truly say to ourselves, do I feel strong? Do I feel full? Do I feel tired? Main point for me is that like the metrics from a tracker should support awareness and not replace it. So
yeah,
I think just like we talked about in the beginning, there are different people who need trackers and can use them well, and they're
mhm,
not bothersome to them or it create addictive issues or obsessive issues, and
mhm.
other people who can't, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think the key here is if you find yourself always checking,
Mhm,
when you talk about body image, it's like body checking. So if you're always pulling
mhm.
at your clothes or tugging at your clothes or pinching, those kinds of things.
Oh,
With fitness, it's very similar. It's, are you always checking? Is there more brain space taken up than maybe is worth that you're missing out on other things? Like you're not
mm,
present for your life. You're missing out because
mhm,
you're counting too much or calculating or adding or subtracting or pinching or right. So is this a helpful tool and I just kind of notice it, or is it something that is pulling me forward and I
right.
have to continue to check it because that's that fine line between helpful and harmful.
Yeah. No, I think those are really good tips. Can we talk about one of the big hot topics right now, which is the GLPs? And do you have thoughts about those and what you're kind of how you're addressing all of that and that world? I don't even have a great question for you, but I just kind of want to hear what your thoughts are.
It is a loaded it's not a loaded question. It's a loaded topic,
Mhm.
right?
It
In our
is.
world right now.
Definitely.
GLPs are not going away,
No.
right?
Mm-mm.
And so how do we use them or have them in our world in a way that they do not cause harm? And so I do believe for some people, a GLP medication can be very helpful for them because it does hit our biology.
Mhm.
It does hit the reward centers of the brain. It can quiet food noise. It
Mhm.
can slow down our appetite so we can reconnect to hunger and fullness. And there's research that it's helping, heart health and some other things.
Mhm.
It can also be really harmful for someone who just wants to look better, but might want to go on and then come off. That's where I get a little concerned. Or
Mhm.
want to go on and then it spirals into something that can be destructive and
Mhm.
obsessive and compulsive and bring somebody to the opposite side of the spectrum where they might be developing obsessed behaviors. It can lead to an eating disorder. I think it can be helpful for some. It's almost like we have this theme of our show today, right?
Yeah.
Who are you and what is it
Mhm.
for
Yep.
and why? And what do you expect it to do?
Right.
And to make sure your expectations are, you manage your expectations because not everybody will lose weight on these
Right.
medications. And so if you expect to and then you don't, how is
Mm.
that gonna land on your psyche and what is that going to do? And so it's just
Mhm.
I don't have a definite yes, no, right, wrong, right?
Mhm.
Because I just think it's so individual. And
It
if you
is.
have had any type of eating disorder behavior or an eating disorder in the past, I really think it's contraindicated because I think it can
Mhm.
wake up those pathways, and that scares me. Quickly, the other thing that
Mhm.
scares
Yeah,
I think that sometimes is this going to be that people judge people for being in a larger body size and say, "You should just take the shot."
right,
Right? And that
right.
I don't think that that's where body autonomy I have a book in my head around, the body autonomist because I think that there's something to be said for it's your
Mhm.
body,
Mhm.
you decide what's best for you, but what does that look
Yeah.
like? And think about it big picture. What are your thoughts?
I have thoughts about GLPs. I discovered them, like, 8 years ago before they hit big and was
Mm,
fascinated with their ability to reduce inflammation in microdoses, and so that's actually my favorite way to use GLPs, and I'm actually a huge fan of one that hasn't been approved by the FDA yet.
mm,
It's called retatrutide, and so
yeah,
that one hits the GLP agonist, but it also hits appetite, insulin, and muscle. So it keeps your muscle, so it's like a metabolic regulator, and then helps you control your blood sugar, and it helps control that food noise, which I think if somebody is listening and they're like, "What is food noise?" If you don't know what food noise is, you've
don't
never
worry about it.
probably never had it. But if you're driving somewhere and you just had breakfast and you can't stop thinking about what your next snack or lunch is, that's food noise, you know?
Mm,
And I think a lot of us, if you've ever had any food insecurity, I mean, I grew up in a really big family, and I know that for me, you always want enough. you know?
Mhm.
And so there's always this kind of race for the next bowl of whatever you're gonna eat. So the lack of food noise that GLPs provide is really nice. I've dabbled here and there because I'm always curious and I try all the things because that's just I'm my own guinea beauty. I really like them. I've seen them help people with so many underlying things when we
Mhm.
microdose them. I haven't seen anybody personally who's overdone it. I've heard horror stories, but I think when you're really responsible about it and keep it nice and low and do all the things, prioritize protein, prioritize lifting heavy, prioritize recovery and fluid intake, electrolytes in particular,
Right.
then I think we do really well on them. But like you
Yeah.
said, know your audience. I think that some people, that obsession can go the wrong way. The one thing I do know about GLPs, though, is that they can break that reward center just a little bit. So I wonder how it's going to work with eating disorders, or I
Mhm.
guess it's disordered eating now, is how you say it. I just wonder what the data are going to be when they come out about that.
I think it'll depend on the tracks in somebody's brain, body size wise, like the weight on the scale and some of the
Right.
number stuff around that is it will be interesting because I know they hit the reward centers and I understand about, people are drinking less. There's some parts of this that I think can be really helpful for us moving forward. We just want to be really careful. That space of do no harm,
Right.
and asking those questions and making sure it's supported with all the behaviors that you were talking about.
But to also remember that we create peptides in our bodies. They are short chain
Mhm.
amino acids. So it's not like a GLP is something foreign. It is commercially produced in a lab, but it is something our body is familiar with. And so
Mhm.
using them to support, it's not cheating. That's the other thing. I think people
Yes.
sometimes go the other way and they're like, "Oh, you're using the shot, I did it all natural." And it's like, "Well, actually, it's all natural because it's still in our bodies. We're just giving it a little more." And I liken it to digestive enzymes because we're born with pretty much all the digestive enzymes we're going to have. And so as we age, that's why our digestion starts to wane and we need to help ourselves with either, say, bitters or a full spectrum digestive enzyme, or choosing how we eat differently so that our food can digest on its way down with, like, say, some like kimchi or sauerkraut if your body can tolerate that. So GLPs are something that are waning in our bodies as we age. So a little bit of assistance isn't cheating.
It's a tool.
It's a tool, exactly. It's okay, so I think we hit the GLPs beautifully. Thank you for having that conversation with me.
Mhm.
I wanna talk for a moment about nutrition nuance, about, like, extreme deprivation, how that's not healthy, how awareness matters, how our fuel affects how we feel, and then garbage in, garbage out. Do you have thoughts about porting versus punishing our bodies? And I'm guessing you do.
Well, yeah, I think that punishment looks like deprivation, starving self. It also looks like binging.
Mhm,
So I think on either end of the scale, we talked about the body image continuum. I think there's a continuum with food and eating as well. How are we making sure we're getting enough fuel
mhm,
to do the things that we wanna do. And also part of my own food noise distractor, the one that helped me quiet food noise was actually to lift the morality from food. It's not right, wrong,
mm,
good, bad, clean, dirty. Food is food.
mm,
Yes, there are certain foods that nourish our bodies really well. They are digested well. They give us energy. We don't feel like we gotta go take a nap. And then there are some other foods that taste really good, and every time I've said to myself, "I can't have that ever again," that's the only thing that I can think about. And so by releasing all of that morality, I just have said,
mhm,
"Okay, here are the foods that I am willing to go, you know what? That doesn't really sit with me anyway. I don't really care
mhm,
about that, but I am not willing to give up this, this, and this." So what
mhm,
does that look like? How can I live my life in a way that I have the energy to do the things I wanna do? And that
mhm,
my body is fully supported, and that I can enjoy some of these other foods that I
mhm,
might like. And so that's where intuitive eating can really come into play. They have 10 principles, and one of them is a little bit more like just reject diet culture. And I do think that diet culture hasn't helped us. The narrow scope of eating in diet culture hasn't helped us. So I think
mhm,
about widening the lanes, giving us a little bit of leeway, allowing us to find our own. And actually in the Body Joyful, I have a chapter at towards the end, it's like define your own healthy. Like, what does that look like for you?
Mhm.
How do you want to live your days? What do you want to be able to
Right.
do in your body? How do you want your energy to play out? How do you want to make sure you're prioritizing your sleep? Like there's so many
Right.
little things to define your own healthy, and then let's support it with food and with exercise and movement and self-care.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I'm in the gym and I see you can see the people who are punishing themselves.
Yeah.
And I always think that's a shame because to me, like muscle is freedom or strength is freedom and independence and long term health. And muscle is a glucose sink. So it also helps to protect us from some of that midlife chaos that can happen, that insulin chaos. Just to repeat kind of what I said in the intro, like what is your healthy? Is it being able to carry your grandbabies, move furniture, hike, travel, garden, get off the floor easily, and
Yeah.
continue doing the things that you love as you age? Like, to me, lifting for those reasons is very different from punishing myself. I hope that people can, if they need help finding that space, finding their healthy, they can do
Yeah.
that with your tools because it
Yeah.
seems really accessible from your tools and maybe just a mind shift that can be super helpful.
I tell a story. A year and a half ago, I went to Japan. My daughter lives in Japan. She was having a baby. She has
Mhm.
a 3-year-old, now he's 4. But at the time, she said, "Will you come and watch, be around and be able to be with him while I have the baby," and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. So I put myself on a 6-week, 3-year-old training program. And I joke about it, but it's really like, talk about what's your why. I crawled, got down and up, like, part of it was just getting
Mhm.
down and up and making sure that I could do that and lifting heavy things so that I could pick him up and hold him and carry it, and if I needed to hold him for a long period of time. So, it's just, what do you wanna do in your body? What
Yeah.
is important to you? What pulls at your, that intrinsic motivation? What pulls at you that you just, "I wanna make sure that I can still get up off the floor. I
Yeah.
wanna make sure that I can travel," whatever it
Mhm.
is. It's reverse engineer your exercise around what you want to be able
Right.
to do in
That
your
I
body.
can lift my own carry-on into the bin over my
Exact
head on the
Yep.
airplane. Yeah, I love your three-year-old training program. That is awesome. And I'm jealous because Japan is on my list for this year. I'm turning 50 and it's on my list of things to do. I'm not sure if it'll happen, but it's pretty close to
Yeah.
happening.
Good, good, good,
Yeah.
good. It's
Pretty
beautiful.
okay, so I have a couple of rapid fire questions. You ready?
Ready.
Okay. One thing women should stop saying to themselves immediately.
Should.
Ah,
I should
stop
or I
shitting on
shouldn't.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
I should do this or I shouldn't feel like this, so should and shouldn't, I think, are really difficult words that
Mhm,
put us in a place of shame even, or feeling
mhm,
like not good enough or not being seen or all of those things. So those are the 2 words that it is a simple
mhm.
word, but I even catch myself saying it sometimes. I think I said it once, and that's why I said, "I don't wanna use that word," but as opposed to should, have to, need to, get to, want to, can't wait to, right?
Yes.
Just shifting the language a little bit, yeah.
What is one non-negotiable self-care practice that you have for yourself?
For me, it's gotta be journaling because journaling really changed the trajectory of my life, It got me to hear
Mhm.
myself and hear my thoughts over and over and over again. I joke that I just got sick of myself, so I had to do something with my journal, but it was because of my journal, right, that I was able to actually see that pattern.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And
Yeah.
what is one thing you want every woman to know before menopause, if she has a chance to hear this?
Work on continuing to deepen your connection with listening to yourself and listening to your body, like, develop that relationship with your body. They use the term embodiment, but I think we just get disconnected from our body, and can you really tune in, listen to it when it's getting hungry, or what it feels
Mm,
like when it's angry, or what it feels like when it's tired, like, just start to try to find the nuances of how it feels to live in your body, and what does that look
mhm.
like. So I think just fine tuning that more and more as you move into perimenopause, and then right out through, basically through the rest of our lives.
Mhm. I love that. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing to remember as we move
Well,
into menopause. Okay, this is my favorite question that I love to ask
Okay.
people. If you were stranded on a deserted island and could only bring 3 supplements, wellness tools, or health practices with you, what would they be and why?
I've heard you ask this question. I would bring my journal.
Love it.
Um,
Nobody said that yet.
that's good, that's good. And, for you, I would bring my progesterone because it helps me sleep. Um,
Yes, yes,
and the 3rd, I think this is the one that I'm like, I don't know, music is really important to me, so I love
right?
music. But then
Mhm.
I heard somebody say, "Well, you gotta be able to get food and do things," and so, some tool, but I probably would just go with the music, and I think the energy of the music and being able to sleep would provide me with what I needed to do to get whatever I needed. How's
I
that?
love it. I love music. That's great. I think that's also a new one.
Oh,
I
yay.
I should make a list of all the things people have said. It's always been one person, it was her lotion, and
Okay.
that one cracks me up. It's actually my sister, and
Yeah.
she goes nowhere without her lotion.
Hey,
Mm,
if it's important to her, it's her body.
it is, I know,
Yes.
and it's fantastic, and that she knew that for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been a joy to have you here today, Anne. Is there anything else that you would like the listeners to hear?
I think the biggest thing is that your body and your body weight, it has nothing to do with your worth as a human being, and to remind yourself of that.
That's
Because if you
beautiful.
ask all your friends why they like you, it has nothing to do about your body. It has to do with
Right.
all the things that you do within your body, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, I love that. And where can listeners find your books and find your work?
Yeah, you can go to Amazon and find my books. I do have a link tree, so if you go to Linktree and put my name in, Ann Poirier 11, you'll find all of the books. And I also have a free gift for your audience. It's called
Oh,
The Body Confidence Unlocked
okay.
and How to Feel at home in your body, regardless of age or size.
Well, we'll definitely put that all in the show notes. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Missy. It was a great conversation. I appreciate you.
It sure was. Well, my lovelies, if you've enjoyed today's conversation with Anne, please leave a rating and review. And I would be so honored if you'd share it with that friend who is still punishing herself because she doesn't have to. I hope you feel beautiful because you are inside and out. Be well.
Thank you for joining me here today on the Menopause Midwife. If you'd like more information or to work with me, feel free to check out my website and book a wellness consultation at ohm406.com. Be well.